Welcome to Fans First, a sports podcast where your voice matters most. Hosted by Hall of Fame sportscaster Jim Powell. This is the show that puts fans at the heart of the conversation. Whether you're cheering in the stands, screaming at the TV, or debating with friends about the latest trades, Fans First is here to amplify your thoughts, your insights, and your love for the game.
Hello and welcome to Fans First, a sports podcast. I'm Jim Powell. I'm your host. I'm honored to be in that role again today. But first, we've got some great news. We have a wonderful new sponsor for Fans First, a sports podcast. It's the Georgia Advisory Group. It's a longtime, very successful financial services firm with over 120 years of combined experience. It's run by Dave Dooley. He's the founder. He's been there from the beginning. And Dave is a big sports fan, and he's kind of built his business kind of like you would build an all-star team. He's got a Georgia Advisory Group riddled with all-stars like a full-time CPA, investment advisors, money managers, insurance experts, estate planning professionals. They have their clients covered in every way. One of the many things I love about the Georgia Advisory Group is that it is a fiduciary, which means it has a legal and ethical duty to put their clients' interests first. Lots of us get nervous about trusting someone else to oversee our hard-earned money, but I have known Dave Dooley and his family for decades, and I can tell you he is a rock-solid human being and someone I trust implicitly. Once you get to meet him, you'll quickly understand why his firm has been so successful at helping people make the most of what they have. You don't stay in business this long in a city like Alpharetta, Georgia, unless you are a very respected person, and Dave is certainly that. He and his team sincerely care more about their clients than they do even about themselves. But don't just take my word for it. Go check them out. The Georgia Advisory Group can be reached at 770-746-6511. That's 770-746-6511, located in the heart of downtown Alpharetta, Georgia. Hello and welcome to another episode of Fans First, a sports podcast. My name is Jim Powell. I'm honored once again to serve as your host today, and we have another outstanding guest. It's Mr. College Football coming up. In my mind, Tony Barnhart, when you come on and you are serving in that role as Mr. College Football, for all intents and purposes, you've kicked off college football season all by yourself.
Well, Jim, I appreciate that. It's been a fun week. Obviously, we had the SEC Media Days in Atlanta. Always nice to have a home game, but it was a good week, and now we are into it. I told my wife last night. I said, "Summer's over. At least my summer's over. College football starts now, and that's fun. Can't wait till the games get here."
Yeah, that's when we all love the sport even more, if it's possible. Tony, obviously every SEC Media Days, there's news that comes out. Some of it is just people saying controversial things on purpose so that they get a lot of coverage from Mr. College Football and others. Others, especially in the news-rich environment in which we're in college football now, with house settlements and NIL changes and governing bodies swapping roles and things of that nature. There probably was plenty of things for you all to focus on and think about with regards to the developments this week.
Well, it was. Look, I would love if we spent all of our time talking about the game on the field, but that's not where we are right now, because there are things that are very important things that have not been issues that have not been resolved. And Greg Sankey, the commissioner, talked about them all week. Specifically, how's NIL going to work in the new world order, where all the NIL deals are double checked and triple checked by an outside agency? How does that work? And what about the transfer portal? The coaches want the SEC coaches want one opportunity in the transfer portal, and the Big Ten wants two. Now you've got an argument there, and the ongoing disagreements between the SEC and the Big Ten. So there was a lot to talk about, and it's really going to make for an interesting August, I think, before we get to the games. People love this stuff.
Let's start with and we will get to football because, like you, I don't want to sit here and just lay in the weeds of college football for our entire time together and everybody walk away dissatisfied or bored because a lot of people don't want to pick through all that. But when in terms of the things that you did learn from the actual football coaches and the football programs, were there any surprises to you? Was there any single piece of news that you felt rose to the top of the SEC media's days?
Not really, Jim. I mean, I think when you go into this event, a lot of us, we do a lot of prep work so we can hopefully ask intelligent questions. And I didn't catch any real, Greg McElroy, of course, floating out the idea that Nick Saban's going to return to coaching. I will simply say I am skeptical of that, even though I consider Greg to be a friend. I spent some time, a good chunk of time a few weeks ago with Coach Saban in Tuscaloosa, and I'll say he was in a great frame of mind because he knows he made the right decision to get out when he did. So let's just say maybe he will come back as the coach at his alma mater, Kent State or something like that. I don't know, but I do not see him returning to the crazy part of coaching, which is where we are now.
I would guess that there are a number of other college football coaches who are looking at Nick and saying, dang it, he beat us again. He was the one that got out first before all this garbage started.
That's right.
I'm sure there are plenty others that are looking, having chats with their wives about, well, Nick did it. Maybe what should I do?
Right. Well, first you got to get a $9 million contract and then get out.
Right.
So
minor
detail.
Those
big old contracts that's going to take care of you for a long time.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, I've never really felt like obviously I don't have the insights into Nick Saban that you have, but I've never gotten the feeling that Nick Saban looks anything less than just having the time of his life in his post head coaching days. His TV commercials are hilarious. He seems so relaxed and out of character from what we used to see on the sidelines. So I would be absolutely shocked if he came back to coaching a big time program again like Alabama.
Well, the great thing about being on game day, he told me, is he's always been a preparation guy. His whole life he's been getting ready for the next game and the preparation that goes with it. And so that suddenly goes away. But preparing for a 3-hour live radio show every Saturday morning he said, I've enjoyed the preparation. I'm used to it. And I've talked to a number of people at ESPN that said nobody prepares like this guy. I mean, he is thorough and knows exactly what he's doing. So he's getting those itch scratched, and he's made a lot of money, and Alabama's paying him $500,000 a year as an ambassador. It's what they're going to call it. That's the job that we need, Jim. We need to be ambassadors. So
yeah, you this whole thing about you being Mr. College Football is we aired on that one. We should have made you the ambassador of college football.
But no, I don't think there was any big news. Obviously, the ongoing discussion about where we're going to go in the playoff format for 2026. We'll have the 12-team format this year. People think we're going to the 16 teams in 2026, but if the SEC and the Big Ten can't agree on it, how to pick those 16 teams, then it's not going to get done. And Greg Sankey has sort of laid the groundwork saying, guys, this is not a done deal by any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. All the different conferences have different pluses and different minuses in terms of money that they have and facilities and everything else. And so, of course, they're going to argue about the nitty gritty when it comes to some things. And they're up against the big conferences like the SEC that have an awful lot of power in those discussions. No question. But the thing about it is, I always come down to this. People say, well, what's the answer? I said, money. You tell me what the question is. The answer is money. And if they don't get this done for 2026, they're probably going to leave about $70-80 million on the table. So I think when you have a deadline and there's a lot of money riding on that deadline, things seem to happen pretty quickly. Deadline for this decision, Jim, on what the format's going to be for the 16-team playoff, that decision, ESPN has told the conferences, well, they told the SEC and the Big Ten. They said, guys, you're in agreement now, but if you want to have a 16-team format for 2026, you got to decide by December 1. If you don't decide by December 1, we're sticking with 12 for at least one more year. Interesting. Well, that is a big piece of news coming out of the media days, no doubt. I agree with you. I mean, if there's a big pile of money sitting there and they've got a couple of months to stare at it, sooner or later they're going to figure out how to make sure that it's incorporated into their coffers as well as their partners' coffers.
Well, and they can't afford to leave money on the table. Why? Because every school's got to come up with $20.5 million to distribute to the players, the athletes, every year. I mean, that's not a 1-year deal. That's every year you got to raise $20 million to pay the players. And you can't afford to leave 30, 40, $50 million on the table.
This College Sports Commission, which is basically a nonprofit entity that's going to have a large say in many, many matters, apparently, the way they're shaping things up in college football with the new system. Do you see that to be fraught with danger? Who's going to monitor, the College Sports Commission? I mean, everybody's got to have a boss, right? So yeah. Who's their boss?
Jim, that's a great question. The fact of the matter is, the College Sports Commission, they're looking at all these NIL contracts and they're saying, "Oh yeah, this passes muster. This is market value. This is not somebody coming up with a roll of $100 bills." But the player involved, and more specifically the player's lawyer, is saying, "Wait a minute, why do you get to decide what my client's worth? My client is worth whatever somebody's willing to pay him. That's the way capitalism works. And we're going to court because you have vastly underrated my client, and I think we deserve to at least negotiate for more." So it's a good idea to look at all these NIL deals and say, does it pass muster? Is it market values? And it's good, but you're making judgments that impact the athlete, and the athlete's has already lawyered up, and the lawyer says, "Hey, my client is worth whatever somebody's willing to pay," and that's how the free market works. So that's when it hasn't been. It's a good idea, but the problem is without antitrust help or something like that, it's not gonna last.
Because it's not going to be just one athlete complaining to one entity. It's going to be an avalanche of lawsuits, right? I mean, that sure. Seems to be inevitable unless they can find some way to head that off. But there are going to be a lot of people who think that, hey, the guy across the street there just got $5 more than I did, and so we got to go to court and recoup that.
Yep, that's exactly right. And that's why in the long term, these issues don't get resolved unless you have some sort of antitrust legislation, which the commissioners have lived on Capitol Hill in Washington for years, months, and because they're trying to get some antitrust help. If they can't get antitrust help, the next step is you've got to find a way to collectively bargain these things. In other words, this is what because you want the College Sports Commission to say, well, this is what you're worth because you as players collectively bargained that this was going to be the number. That's the NFL. The NFL collectively bargains what the salary cap is in the NFL, and so you know going in. And so that to me that is a big key.
Let's step back in closer to the locker rooms of college football teams and the games that are ahead. What kind of impact do you see from the sport being awash with money for student athletes that can be given to them directly? NIL is still hanging around. Do you see the possibility that the locker rooms will be happier and more cohesive because everybody's getting paid, or a lot less happy because some people are getting paid less than they thought they should have been paid?
Well, it's really the latter. But here's the irony. With all this stuff going on with NIL, with transfer portal, with all this going on, once the games start, nobody cares about this stuff. They're paying attention. But this is what we have to talk about right now and in the preseason stuff. So the coaches, though, do have to be aware of kind of where the guys are fitting in. If somebody gets a big contract and the feeling in the locker room is that guy's not worth it. Yeah. But I think the reality is that most guys are going to probably get what they probably deserve to get. But I always wonder when a guy gets a big fancy car and stroll in there, sometimes sometimes that green monster jealousy just raises its head. So I just think the coaches have to be aware of it and make sure that the players are getting treated fairly.
Well, and when you mentioned the green monster and the big, beautiful new car that somebody drives onto the lot of their campus, the first thing I think of is Carson Beck. I mean, Carson Beck last year, I think it's safe to say that he was not as warmly liked last year as maybe in previous years. There could be something to the big car and the high profile girlfriend and all of that, that quarterback position in particular is supposed to be that of a leader of all the people on that team and an inspiration for all of those folks, whether that's a realistic goal or not. That's the theory. I didn't see Carson Beck having a line of followers behind him as the season went along last year.
Well, it is a very difficult situation. It's one thing. Well, the contrast that people drew when Gunnar Stockton became the starting quarterback who drives a pickup truck to class as opposed to a Lamborghini. Those two guys are in two different universes, and that is one thing for sure, is that the players love Gunnar Stockton. And I've told people they worry about the quarterback position at Georgia. I said, no, those guys, the guys in that locker room are not going to let him fail.
Yeah, I would agree with that. He is part of the DNA of the UGA football program at this point, no question about it. Did you all do a lot of voting on your way out? Did they poll you on which teams are going to do best in the SEC, which teams, et cetera? What can you tell us about the inclinations of some of your brethren along with yourself?
I am so glad you asked, Jim, because right here, hot off my printer, were the votes at the end of the week, the media votes. I must confess, all full disclosure, I was not able to vote on these myself, but this is what the media did. Who's the SEC champion, you ask? That would be Texas, who got 96 points. Georgia, Alabama, LSU, South Carolina, Oklahoma, Vanderbilt, Florida, Tennessee. Wow. Tennessee got one vote for the SEC champion. One. My goodness. Ole Miss got a vote and Auburn got a vote. That's for the SEC champion. And for the SEC finish, Texas, Georgia. I thought Texas and Georgia would be the top two. Texas, Georgia, Alabama, LSU, South Carolina, Florida, Ole Miss, Texas A&M, Tennessee, Oklahoma, Auburn, Missouri, Vanderbilt, Arkansas, Kentucky, and poor Mississippi State. So a lot of votes here for Texas and Georgia, which is who I have playing in the SEC championship game. Think about this. It is possible, likely, it is possible that Texas and Georgia could play 3 times this year. They will play in Athens on November 15th. They could play in the SEC championship game. If they get hot, they could play in the national championship playoffs. So they could play 3 times this year.
There'll be stretchers on both sidelines for those two teams play 3 times.
And two of those games, I was going to say, one of those games would be back in Atlanta where they played last year. So.
Well, since you didn't get a chance to vote there, you can create your own Tony Barnhart Fans First podcast, voting yourself, and tell us which teams that the rest of the media chose do you feel are underrated, which ones are overrated, and if any are just egregiously off, then fill us in on that too, if you don't mind.
Well, I'm sitting here for the SEC champion, Texas, Georgia, Alabama, LSU. That's exactly what I had. A lot of smart sports writers. I like that. I think Texas and Georgia, there's a little separation between them and everybody else. I think Alabama's going to bounce back in a big way. LSU is my dark horse. They've got an NFL quarterback and Garrett Nussmeier. I talked to Brian Kelly. He said this is his best roster. I went, this is your best roster like ever? He said, yeah. And he had an undefeated team at Notre Dame. They have hit the transfer portal hard on the they were just awful on defense 2 years ago. A little bit better last year. I was told they're going to get a little bit better this year. Brian Kelly likes this team, so we'll see. South Carolina was playing as well as anybody. Their quarterback, I absolutely love that guy. They may be ranked too low. Oklahoma, Brett Venables has got to bounce back, but that's about where I'd have them. They've got the Gators 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now, the Gators are better than that. The Gators are going to have a good year with DJ Lagway. So it's Tennessee. I'm really surprised that they only got one first place vote. You're talking about a team that won 10 games and was in the college football playoff and has one of the better defenses in the country. So, but for the most part, sports writers were pretty smart. I don't often say that.
Well, you're the leader of the pack, so we give them, the others pull some gravitas away from you because you're the Mr. College Football, and they know it. What about in terms of conference matchups? It's a little bit more difficult because you weren't at the Big Ten, media days, just like you were the SEC. That's why the SEC always feels like it's the kickoff the college football season, because that's the one, even people that aren't involved with the SEC, they want to see what is happening in the SEC. Who do you see conference wise? Is it way too early to be trying to think, okay, the Big Ten should be super strong again, and the ACC not so much? What are your thoughts generally about? Because there's a lot of people obviously watching and listening to our podcast that don't care anything about Georgia. I'm wearing my Georgia shirt because we're talking college football today, but they don't care anything about that. They want to hear about what their conference, their school, how they may be impacted by the lay of the land in college football here in 2025.
Well, it's generally conceded that Penn State's got the best team in the Big Ten this year. Drew Aller returns as quarterback, and this. James Franklin's been building this roster, and they're due. And I think they've got a chance now. The Big Ten has won the last two national championships. Ohio State will be good again. Michigan will be good again. How good, we'll see. Ohio State, of course, opens at home against. They open at home in a big game against Texas. That's going to be worth watching. So, yeah. But I like Penn State in the Big Ten. Big 12, it's probably going to be Kansas State. If BYU was in the discussion until they lost their quarterback not too long ago. So I think it's going to be Kansas State. It'll be a pretty good league. And I think then after all is said and done, the ACC, I think Clemson, I've got Clemson in my top 4. Matter of fact, I have a number 3. They have what is probably the best defensive line in the country. And Cade Klubnik, has a quarterback from Texas, has been in the program. This is his 5th year, and they are expecting real big things out of him. They play LSU, by the way, in the opener at Clemson. I told my LSU friends today, you better look out for Clemson because they won national championships in 2016 and 2018. They're ready to start competing for another one.
Well, you're serving up some very mouth-watering matchups right off the top of the 2025 season. In fact, my mouth is literally watering now thinking about college football right around the corner here. Obviously, you know the Georgia program well, being a writer based in Atlanta and with all kinds of ties to all the teams in the South, but also all around college football. But what are your thoughts on what I'll call the hometown Georgia Bulldogs? What are your expectations for them?
Well, I find it interesting that the fans are really hung up on Gunnar Stockton and whether or not he can. He's not a Carson Beck. He doesn't have that kind of arm, but he's a guy that the players love, and he plays hard. I think Gunnar Stockton is going to be fine. I'm more worried for Georgia. I'm more worried about the fact that they haven't had a 1,000-yard rusher since 2019. I'm more worried about the fact that they finished next to dead last in the SEC in running the football and could not run the football when they needed to protect the lead in the fourth quarter. I'm more worried about the fact for Georgia that they had 36 drop passes last year that led the nation. How'd you like that distinction? Now, they've addressed that in the transfer portal by bringing in better receivers. So I'm kind of figuring if you bring in better receivers, you probably catch the ball. a little bit better. And the defense, they're not as good as they've been in the past, but they've got very, very talented people. Four new starters on the offensive line. So there's a lot. I'm not worried about the quarterback at Georgia. I am worried about a lot of those other things.
It's a relatively young roster also, especially on the defensive side. You're going to have a lot of guys in there that you already mentioned. They have a lot of talent, and we saw some of them last year, but there's going to be, with a young group, freshmen and sophomores, you're going to get some growing pains.
Well, Kirby Smart told us when he met with the media on Tuesday, he said 54% of our roster are first-year players or second-year players. That's over half your roster is first and second. But one thing Coach Smart did not say is that those players are very, very talented. And I think they'll be fine. Now, look, Alabama comes to Athens on September 27th. We'll all be a lot smarter then than we are now. So.
I was going to say, yeah, the schedule also is a bit daunting for Georgia, but it's daunting for everybody with there's more games and there's more big games, and you're playing teams that you get used to having your favorite cupcakes, such as they are in the SEC, just like the ACC has their own teams to beat up on, et cetera. But there's not a lot to beat up on in the SEC these days.
Well, let's take Georgia. The last year they played Texas, Alabama, Ole Miss, and Kentucky on the road. Those four. This year, all four of those schools, they all come to Athens. Mark your calendar from November 15th. That's when Texas comes to Sanford Stadium at Dooley Field for the first time ever. That will be pretty cool.
That will be epic. Speaking of Kirby, I know a lot of my Georgia buddies worry that with the NIL and the house settlement and the transfer portal and things like that somebody like Kirby is a great family man and really wants to run his college football program like they were run back in the day, and you really take care of your players, and it's more of a family type atmosphere. But I never saw or heard Kirby rolling his eyes or groaning about a Lamborghini in the student athlete parking lot. But I can't imagine that was a joy for him to watch and to manage. What are your thoughts on Kirby long term? Is he going to be able to find a way to survive in this era that we're in and wait for a better era, or is he going to get tired of it or disgruntled?
I think Kirby's going to be fine. Look, he grew up in the business. His father was a very successful high school coach, and he addressed that in this sense that we at Georgia, we're not going to be transactional. It's about family. It's about relationships. And so I think in that regard, but look, kids want to come to Georgia because you get a chance to play at the highest level of football. You have look at Georgia's track record on draft day. Okay, all the elements are there, and so I think there's a lot. A wise coach once told me that there are just a lot of different ways to win, and he was talking about his team and said, the way we do it is one of them. And the way that Kirby Smart wants to win, it is still proven. But you guys know that it's all about recruiting. It's about players. If you don't have players, you can't coach. Coaching is very important when talent is equal. But if talent's not equal, I go with talent.
Yeah, understood. And I'm sure you noticed the flood of really high-profile recruits who jumped on the Georgia bandwagon not too long before the SEC media days came about. So it looks like whatever he's managing with these players and the way he's trying to coach them up in terms of, hey, make long-term decisions, don't make short-term decisions. I think that appears to be at this point working really well.
Yep, it is working really well, I think. And, people say, can Kirby Smart sustain this? I mean, consider this is his 9th year. I believe that's right. He's lost 19 games in 9 years. Oh, man. So, and can you sustain it? You absolutely can sustain it as long as you recruit at a very high level. And my experience is if your head coach is your lead recruiter and he's good at it, It sets the tone for everybody, and there's no question that Kirby Smart and Nick Saban and guys like that are the lead recruiters.
I forgot to ask you off the top how Mrs. College Football is doing. The heck with you. How's Mrs. College Football?
She's great. She's great. She's, we're going to call it a career after this season. And I'm sure she said she's got plenty for me to do. There's trips coming up. I'm working on a book that I'm going to finish up after the season, and we'll be doing some work with University of Georgia Press on that. So
nice.
She's got big plans for me. So
I'm sure she does.
There are 2 grandchildren that I have not spoiled nearly enough.
Gotcha.
I'm woefully behind on my spoiling of grandchildren.
Well, if Mrs. College Football ever gives you too much to handle, jump back over here to the Fans First podcast, and we'll talk some football with you and send you back to Mrs. College Football all refreshed and ready.
Oh, I appreciate that.
Tony, thank you so much for coming on with us. I know busy week in Atlanta with the media days, and I'm sure you're sleep deprived a bit, but you came on anyway. You're a real trooper, and you got everybody with their mouths watering just like mine at the prospect of college football being right around the corner, which is exactly where it is. Tony, thank you so much.
Thank you, Jim. I can't wait for the games to start.
Me too. Right there with you. Well, we had a great visit with Mr. College Football, Tony Barnhart. It is so nice to talk about football, and it's almost here, folks. But in the meantime, we have a great submission today out of Boston, Massachusetts. Jacob Godfrey has an opinion on Major League Baseball and doesn't care too much for what the owners are doing, and was hoping to see some changes there. Jacob, take it away.
Hey, get off my lawn.
Hello, Mr. Powell. I'm grateful to be on your show. I'm calling from Boston because I've noticed that across the league, we've been getting a bigger divide between the top and bottom tiers of owners in the league today. With every team like the Dodgers and Yankees who go out and sign big free agents like Soto, like Ohtani, Max Fried, we've been getting teams like the Rockies who seemingly do nothing year after year. So I want to ask, should we as fans be worried that there won't be any change in the league? Or can we expect future improvements to the league's ownership? Thank you, and go Sox.
Well, Jacob, unfortunately, you heard the bad news from the owners, the players, and everyone else concerned with Major League Baseball who have ever talked about trying to inspire the players and the owners and Major League Baseball to all get on the same page with regards to doing what's right for the fans who pay all the bills for all of those aforementioned entities. And unfortunately, they never get on the same page. They do the same thing they just did to you. They just kick people off their lawn and keep on going. And I don't know when or if that's ever going to change. It's not likely to be solved to the fans' satisfaction anytime soon. Undoubtedly, there'll be changes by the owners and be changes by the Major League Baseball Players Association. But in terms of the emergence of a new system that forces everybody to spend lavishly to neutralize the real free spenders without a lengthy shutdown of Major League Baseball, I don't see that happening anytime soon, unfortunately. But thanks so much for your submission. We invite everyone who's got an opinion and has some time to send us one. Tell us what you think about this or any other topic. If it's inspirational, if it looks like it's very well thought out, we'll use it on our program. Get your name on here, and who knows, down the road we're going to start throwing some prizes in as well, but we haven't started that quite yet, but that's coming soon on Fans First, a sports podcast. Well, we had a terrific show today. We really loved our visit with Mr. College Football, Tony Barnhart, and we also appreciated the exploits of Jose Baez, our producer today, who did some double time to make sure we got this program in timely fashion. And for those folks, I want to thank them for joining us, as well as the entire Produce Your Podcast crew, and especially for Tammy Gagnon, sorry, I'll get that right. And for Jose Baez, I want to wish all of you a great weekend. My name is Jim Powell, and also you heard from, in a special guest appearance, my German Shepherd, Murphy Powell, made an unexpected visit about partway through our interview with Mr. Barnhart, so you'll probably have already heard that. But anyway, for those folks and everybody else, we'll see you next time on the next edition of Fans First, a sports podcast.
Stay tuned, stay passionate, and keep celebrating the sport you love. Visit us at fansfirstpodcast.com to explore more. Sign up for our newsletter to receive exclusive updates and follow the podcast on social media to join our growing community of sports enthusiasts. Your voice matters to us, so don't hesitate to share your thoughts and connect with fellow fans. See you next time